From NJPBS Studios, this is NJ Spotlight News with Brianna Venozzi.
Good evening. It is election night in New Jersey. Thanks for joining us. I'm Brianna Venozzi. It all comes down to today. Voters across the state are making their final choice for the top of the ticket before polls close at 8 p.m. Will the third time be the charm for Republican Jack Ciattarelli, or will voters select Democratic Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill as the next governor of the Garden State? After a bitter, record-breaking gubernatorial campaign where combined spending by the candidates and outside groups is expected to top $200 million by today. And more than 1.3 million voters cast a ballot before the polls even opened this morning, either early in person or by mail. Multiple polling sites temporarily closed this morning after precincts in 7 counties received emailed bomb threats, prompting election officials to direct some voters to other polling locations. Now, state officials later deemed the threats not credible. Meanwhile, all 80 seats in the state assembly are also up for grabs tonight, plus 1 Senate seat in Paterson. Control of the State House and the direction of New Jersey for the next 4 years are on the line. We'll give you a look at both gubernatorial candidates and where they stand on the issues. We also have reporters out across the state at the polls, speaking with voters and keeping tabs on any irregularities at polling sites. And later, we'll get analysis from our panel on what to expect tonight and beyond. That's all coming up tonight on NJ Spotlight News.
Major funding for NJ Spotlight News is provided in part by NJM Insurance Group, serving the insurance needs of residents and businesses for more than 100 years. Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, an independent licensee of the Blue Cross and Blue Shield Association, and by the PSCG Foundation.
First, a look at the top of the ticket. Mikey Sherrill is looking to make history tonight and hold the line for her party, where Democrats would retain control of the governor's office for another 4 years. Now, she built much of her campaign around fighting President Trump's policies, and she's betting that suburban and urban voters, especially women and working families, will turn out both in support of her campaign and as a rejection to the White House. Senior correspondent Joanna Gagis reports.
The Navy taught me in a crisis, you either find a way or make one.
She's running on a record of service. Mikey Sherrill, a 53-year-old mom of 4 kids, graduated from the Naval Academy in 1994, then served as an officer and Navy helicopter pilot for 10 years. She later went on to become a prosecutor, earning the role of Assistant U.S. Attorney for New Jersey in 2015. Then in 2018, Mikey won her bid for Congress and is currently serving her 4th term as a Democrat representing the state's 11th congressional district. And she's running to be the 2nd woman ever elected as governor of the state of New Jersey, going up against former Republican State Assemblyman Jack Ciattarelli.
Let's be the state that builds more housing. Let's fix the economy. Let's make life more affordable for hardworking New Jerseyans, from healthcare to groceries to childcare. We can also be the state that sets the gold standard for protecting rights and freedoms, and we know they'll be under attack from Donald Trump's Washington.
Sherrill's running on a platform of affordability, addressing one of the major concerns among New Jersey residents at the moment, skyrocketing electricity rates.
Day 1 as governor, I'm declaring a state of emergency on utility costs, using emergency powers to end these rate hikes and drive down your bills.
And Sherrill says she'll be the one to fight policies in Washington that are hurting New Jersey, like massive funding cuts to Medicaid and other social support programs that help low to moderate income families.
It's not just fighting back against cuts to Medicaid, against cuts to Social Security or the Department of Education, and all that would do to our state. It's not just having a really strong attorney general, as I would, to fight back against what's going on in Washington that's harming New Jersey, but it's also fighting for the people of New Jersey, driving down housing costs and utility costs and healthcare costs, making sure every kid in our state has access to a great education.
Sherrill said she'd require school districts to merge to help drive down property taxes that have funded public education.
We have some school districts who have the whole administrative cost, all of the buildings, and yet they're not even running a K through 12 school system. So we do need to merge some of these school districts.
She's also backed county-based schools as one way to help desegregate what's now the most segregated statewide school system in the nation. Sherrill's promised to fully fund the pension system and says she'd back two education approaches, high-impact tutoring and a method of teaching literacy called the science of reading to help close achievement gaps among students, plus more mental health care for kids, and then there's housing.
We're not going to make New Jersey more affordable if we don't make housing here more affordable.
Sherrill says housing costs will go down as development, including affordable housing, expands. She hasn't clearly stated whether she'd continue current controversial state mandates under the Murphy administration requiring municipalities to meet certain development numbers. But she has said she'd work with municipalities to expand what she calls the, quote, missing middle housing. That's affordable housing in communities that haven't kept pace with demand. And then there's transportation, which the Congresswoman says she'll fund to put an end to the nightmare transit situation that residents have endured.
If we have a great transit system, that's good for business. That's really important for people working here for quality of life and for getting to and from work. So we have got to address that. There are innovative ways to do that. We can look overseas to transit systems that have transit-oriented development, and that feeds into the transit system. We can advertise on our trains and our buses.
To secure a lead over her opponent, Sherrill will need a strong showing from the Black community. She's chosen Dale Caldwell, son of a civil rights leader and president of Centenary University, to be her running mate.
And our senior correspondent Brenda Flanagan joins us from East Brunswick, where Mikey Sherrill and her camp will be tonight. Sherrill brought in big names to stump for her in the final days of the campaign, including former President Barack Obama. Now, polls have consistently given Sherrill the lead, though it's narrowed throughout the stretch. But what are voters saying on the ground? Brenda caught up with a few outside the polls and Sherrill as she voted today in Montclair. Brenda.
Hi, Brianna. We're at the East Brunswick Hilton Ballroom where Mikey Sherrill is going to be hosting her election night watch party this evening. I want you, though, to take a look at the risers over here where you'll see all of the TV news cameras and national news coverage, because while this is a race for governor of New Jersey, it's also a referendum on Donald Trump and the impact of his second administration on residents here. Now, we did catch up with voters and the candidate who cast their ballots in Montclair this morning.
And the thing on their minds is cost, both utility costs, housing costs, healthcare costs, and then how they keep getting worse under this administration with the tariffs, with the One Big Beautiful Bill, with the recent attacks on the Gateway Tunnel. You know, we are going to be working here in New Jersey to claw back as much federal funding as possible to continue to run this innovation economy.
When he destroys the East Wing of the White House without going through any proper channels, when he defies court orders, what is going to happen? And I think with her background, her military background, she's tough enough to stand up to it.
I want to ensure that all people maintain the right to marriage, maintain the right to health care, maintain the right to dignity and respect.
What's happening right now with the government shutdown? That's the biggest thing, and that's the biggest issue, because a lot of these kids rely on, the food, the different things of that nature, and the families rely on those things.
Sherrill voted without incident and called bomb threats at Jersey polling places, quote, an effort to suppress voter turnout. She also helped launch canvass efforts in Hudson and Union counties today, part of a well-financed Get Out the Vote effort aimed at winning back some of the New Jersey voters who shifted to Trump last November. Sherrill's campaigned hard to re-energize her base. She banked a 300,000 vote margin amongst registered Democrats before Election Day to overcome what some called an enthusiasm gap.
We've just not seen that on the ground. We've seen, rallies with thousands of people. The early vote, the vote by mails look very, very good. We've surpassed the firewall we wanted to put in place today, the blue firewall, which is, the numbers are looking good. So we just are going to run through the tape and continue getting out every vote.
Party leaders will be keeping their eyes on areas like Union City, Patterson, and Middlesex, hoping for a strong turnout in this off-year election. In East Brunswick, I'm Brenda Flanagan, NJ Spotlight News. Back to you, Brianna.
All right, thanks for that, Brenda. Well, Republican Jack Ciattarelli has been barnstorming the state, running for governor for the third time. And unlike the last race 4 years ago, he's embraced President Donald Trump, along with the MAGA movement behind him, trying to prove the president's gains within blue parts of New Jersey last year weren't just a fluke, but the start of a lasting conservative shift here. Senior correspondent Joanna Gagas takes a look at the candidate and his campaign.
I got a really simple idea. How about we elect a Jersey guy?
He's a lifelong Jersey native whose family roots in the state go back 100 years. That's a message you'll hear Jack Ciattarelli repeat on the campaign trail. The 63-year-old dad of four started his career serving on the Raritan Borough Council in 1990. After serving 5 years, he left to start a business. Over the years, he's launched and then sold 2 medical publishing businesses. In 2007, Ciattarelli was elected to be what is now a Somerset County commissioner, and then 5 years later became a Republican state assemblyman in the 16th legislative district.
Folks, it's time to fix New Jersey. When I'm governor, we will.
This is Ciattarelli's third time running for governor. His first attempt was in 2017, while he was still an assemblyman, and ended with a loss in the primary to then Lieutenant Governor Kim Guadagno. He ran again against the incumbent Phil Murphy in 2021, coming within 3 percentage points of winning, a much better performance than anyone had expected. He's now bringing a third time's the charm attitude to this year's race against Democratic Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill.
I'll lower electricity bills, cut and cap property taxes, and keep our community safe.
Affordability is his top issue. He wants to make retirement income tax-free and freeze property taxes for seniors. He says he'll restructure government, namely the school funding formula, to lower property taxes.
I've committed myself to lowering New Jersey's tax burden. Our New Jersey individuals and businesses pay the highest overall taxes in the country. I can responsibly reduce the size and cost of our state government to afford a tax cut for individuals and businesses.
He's a proponent of school choice and vouchers for charter schools. Ciattarelli has said he wants to follow Louisiana's education plan for closing achievement gaps, where students only study English language arts and math until they're caught up. He says he'll stop the affordable housing mandates in towns that are, quote, taking the garden out of the garden state. Once a Trump critic, he's now secured the endorsement of the president and taken on his, quote, anti-woke agenda.
Trend Democrats, out of touch and ruining our state. They push offshore wind while our electric bills skyrocket. They raise tolls and fees, but haven't fixed our roads. And they care more about pronouns than property taxes. Had enough? Me too.
Ciattarelli supports a controversial change to Medicaid that came from the president's new federal budget law that requires Medicaid patients to certify their eligibility twice a year. As a former business owner, he says he'd be pro-business, reducing taxes and fees like the corporate transit fee.
Show me a state that doesn't have a Department of Commerce, and I'll show you a state that's perceived as not being pro-business. And so, under Governor Ciattarelli, we will reestablish the Department of Commerce, and that will be responsible for being a point of communication for the business community.
He'd create a Garden State Transportation Authority to oversee all of New Jersey's transit sectors. Ciattarelli's also running on a platform of law and order, consistently highlighting the rise of nonviolent crime, saying he'd undo a bail reform measure put in place by Republican Governor Chris Christie.
Cashless bail has created the professional criminal in the state. There's got to be a consequence. Professional criminals have learned how to game the system. Talk to your local cops. Arrest, release, repeat is real.
And he'd put an end to the notion of New Jersey as a sanctuary state, which started under Governor Murphy.
Executive order number 1 on day 1, we're getting rid of the Immigrant Trust Directive here in New Jersey. I believe the Immigrant Trust Directive, us having sanctuary cities, us being a sanctuary state, only encourages illegal immigration and restricts our local law enforcement in a number of different ways.
To reinforce his law and order platform, Ciattarelli selected Morris County Sheriff James Gannon to be his running mate.
And while both candidates have hammered local issues, vowing to make the state more affordable and bring down energy costs, those topics gave Ciattarelli the opportunity to hammer incumbent Democrats and Mikey Sherrill for carrying the blame. And there's a lot riding on this election, both here and nationally, where the major parties see the outcome as a referendum on President Trump. Senior correspondent Joanna Gagas joins us from Somerville with the latest. Hey, Joe.
Yeah, Brianna, today started with an early morning visit to one of Jack Ciattarelli's favorite places to campaign, a diner. This one in Succasunna in Sussex County. Let me tell you, for 7 a.m., the place was packed with supporters. While there, he did an interview with Fox News where he repeated commitments to the issues that conservative voters hope take the day: reducing taxes, energy costs, getting rid of LGBTQ curriculum in our schools, and bringing back plastic bags. He rejected the notion that New Jersey is a blue state.
It is not a blue state. It is a purple state. And the people that will really dictate the outcome of the election are not just Republicans and moderate Democrats that are voting for me. The 2.5 million unaffiliated independent voters that lean right and, like everyone else, are angry about the way things are. They're going to be voting for us.
Today was pretty quiet for Ciattarelli after an all-out blitz of campaigning, especially in the last week. He did a town hall with Sean Hannity last Thursday. There was a tele-rally with President Trump last night where voters could call in to listen to the president's endorsement. He's hoping all of that does turn out those independents. And there was this emotional moment during the day yesterday when Ciattarelli's son Jake, who's been serving overseas in Kuwait with the Army, surprised his dad at a campaign stop in Totowa in Passaic County. And last night he was on Fox once again talking about the early voting numbers that have come in so far.
Our return is better through the mail. Our return is better through the 9 days of early voting. So again, the goal is to go into Election Day within a certain kind of striking distance, knowing how we performed in 21 on Election Day. Sean, you know this. We still have a whole lot of people that, particularly on the Republican side of the aisle, that like to vote traditionally on Election Day. Fine by us as long as they turn out.
Ciattarelli himself voted last Friday. We're in Somerville right now, which is where he was born. We did speak to a couple voters who came out from this polling location to ask them who they're supporting and why.
I voted for Jack Ciattarelli.
I voted for Mikey Sherrill. I'm just excited to see what she does for New Jersey.
Jack.
Why?
We need a Republican back in office. Things are just out of control all over, and I like what he stands for more than Mikey. You know?
In what way? What do you like?
Cutting taxes.
So obviously mixed results so far, which at this hour feels like what we can expect based on all the polling we've seen throughout this election cycle. In Somerville, I'm Joanna Gagis. Back to you in the studio, Brianna.
Thanks, Joanna. Well, the path to the governor's seat runs through historically Democratic strongholds that have become a battleground for the parties, including Passaic County, where President Trump, of course, made significant gains during the 2024 presidential race. It's also one of just a handful of locations across the country where the Justice Department has sent election officials to monitor polling sites. Raven Santana has the latest from the ground in Passaic County today. Raven.
I'm here in Passaic where voting is underway in what's been considered a tense morning. Passaic County is the only county in New Jersey where the U.S. Department of Justice says it's sending federal election monitors. Still, it remains unclear how many they are and where they will be. And it's causing confusion and concern amongst voters I spoke with. Passaic County is shaping up to be one of New Jersey's key election day battlegrounds after it unexpectedly swung for Donald Trump last year. And now it's under federal watch. The Department of Justice sent election officials to observe voting here after a request from state Republican officials. But the agency hasn't said how many monitors are coming, what their roles will be, or where they'll be stationed.
Even though he's sending out his spies to try to help and turn people against one another, we have to know what's good for us.
Federal election monitors are common, but their presence still has some voters here feeling uneasy, especially in a county with a high Latino population whose turnout at the polls could be decisive in this year's close election.
I think that's kind of scary. Voting, it should be personal, it should be private. Nobody should be monitoring who you're voting for.
Election monitors typically observe activity at polling sites and do not interfere with voting. The Passaic County Board of Elections says it's cooperating with the Justice Department to ensure the election runs fairly and securely.
I met one a little while ago. Seems like a nice gentleman. I have no problem with the federal monitors. When you're running a clean operation, you don't worry about things of that nature.
Today's voting started with tension, and the state confirmed that multiple polling sites, including School 10 in Patterson, received threats early this morning. Those sites have since been reopened.
A scare tactic. I think it's important for Jersey to definitely vote and get out there just because of everything that's been happening recently.
Nonpartisan groups like Election Protection say they're also monitoring sites across the state to make sure voters aren't intimidated.
We heard that there will be federal monitors here sent by Trump. That's about all I can say.
And as you just heard, despite that tense atmosphere, voters I spoke with here in Passaic are still encouraging others to get out and vote. Back to you, Bree.
Okay, we're going to turn now to get all the latest on the Election Day headlines, early voting numbers, and the rest with our senior writer and projects editor Colleen O'Day and Ben Dworkin, director of the Institute of Public Policy and Citizenship at Rowan University. Good to see you both. We're going to be together all night. Ben, let me ask you first, based off of the early voting numbers, what are you seeing and what are we expecting to see tonight? Are we going to have an answer?
We should have an answer for a couple reasons, but we should start with this. 4 years ago, about 2.6 million people were voting in the gubernatorial election. This time, we're looking of approaching closer to 3 million people. So turnout seems to be up across the board, all parts of the state. I think what we're looking at is that this vote comes in a lot of different ways. You have a number of people who vote by mail. There, the Democrats, at least registered Democrats, have turned them in more than registered Republicans. Obviously, we don't know for whom they voted at this point. Then you had early in-person voting. That also seems to be significant. Democrats, again, registered Democrats seem to be voting more than registered Republicans at this point. And now we're going to have the actual Election Day vote, and we'll have to see how this all comes together. The reason 4 years ago we had a big delay, we had to wait until the next day to figure out who had actually won. We don't expect that. The rules have been changed. People can start, the county clerks can start counting these votes from the beginning and then just announce them once the polls close.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, we should note, right, Colleen, that even though more Democratic or registered Democratic voters have cast a ballot, it doesn't necessarily mean that we know what the result will be. But to that end, have Democrats reached this, so-called firewall that we've been talking about, the numbers, the margins that they needed to hit compared to 2021 to feel at least cautiously optimistic heading into tonight?
Yeah, so, we were hearing that the Democrats wanted to have this firewall of 250 to 300,000 votes. They hit that 300,000 margin, again, assuming all Democrats vote for Sherrill and all Democrats, all Republicans vote for Chitterelli. They hit that 300,000 vote margin with today's numbers, and that is 40,000 more early votes for the Democrat than 4 years ago for Phil Murphy. So I think Democrats are feeling comfortable, although not super comfortable, because there is an awful lot of still electioneering going on today. There are canvasses, there are labor walks. So there's still a lot of activity today to try to get people to go out and vote.
Are there any outliers, though? I'm thinking about, I saw some returns that looked a little weak in places like Camden County, where, of course, we have a number of registered Democrats. And then, obviously, some votes up in Hudson County, where there's a big mayoral race, where it seems like there are a plurality of votes, about 20,000 more. Ben or Colleen, can either of you speak to that, or any more honed-in areas that you're looking to for some of those margins?
Well, let me say the key to victory in a statewide race like this is building up your margins in your base counties. So Republican base counties include Monmouth County, Ocean County in particular. They need to run the margins up really big there in order to offset the Democratic base counties, Essex, Middlesex to some degree, Mercer, Camden, these areas, Hudson County. So it's all about building up the margins. When there's more votes, the assumption is there are simply more registered Democrats than registered Republicans in the state. So the more people vote, the percentage of Democrats should increase. And so that's why I think you see, based on those early votes, why Democrats are cautiously optimistic heading into this day. And we'll have to see how the day of Election Day voting really comes to pass.
Ben Dworkin, Colleen O'Day, they'll be with us later tonight. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bree.
And stay with us for our NJ Decides 2025 election coverage, live on NJ PBS and streaming on njspotlightnews.org and on our NJ Spotlight News YouTube channel. We'll have live updates on the hour starting at 8 p.m. Then join us for full coverage beginning at 10 p.m. with reporters live at Republican Jack Ciattarelli and Democrat Mikey Sherrill's campaign headquarters, along with key race updates from around the state and analysis from our in-studio panel. We'll have all the results you need on our website all night and right here on NJPBS. For now, I'm Brianna Venozzi. For the entire team at NJ Spotlight News, thanks for being with us. We'll see you right back here for NJ Decides 2025.
New Jersey Education Association, making public schools great for every child. RWJ Barnabas Health, let's be healthy together. And Orston, committed to delivering clean, reliable, American-made energy.
Have some water. Look at these kids. How are you? What do you see? I see myself. I became an ESL teacher to give my students what I wanted when I came to this country. The opportunity to learn, to dream, to achieve, a chance to belong and to be an American. My name is Julia Toriani Crumpton, and I'm proud to be an NJEA member.